In the vastness of space, humanity's greatest test wasn't conquering the stars. It was showing compassion among them. The emergency beacon caught our deep space monitoring station off guard, its alien frequency pulsing with an urgency we'd never encountered before. I remember that day clearly, standing in mission control as the translation matrix decoded their desperate message. 12,000 souls trapped in a failing fleet, their ships drifting helplessly through the void. None of us expected first contact to happen like this. We'd always imagined it would be some grand diplomatic meeting, or perhaps a cautious exchange of signals across light years. Instead, we found ourselves staring at sensor readings of 3 massive generation ships, their power cores critically damaged by a rogue asteroid storm. Their inhabitants, a species that called themselves the Cagliari, had been searching for a new home after their own star began to die. They have less than 72 hours of life support remaining, Dr. Chen announced, her voice steady despite the weight of the situation. The entire room fell silent, the gravity of the moment settling over us like a heavy blanket. 12,000 lives hanging in the balance, and Earth was their only hope within range. The United Earth Fleet had never attempted a rescue operation of this scale. Our largest ships could barely hold 1,000 people, and we'd need to coordinate a mission across multiple space agencies just to reach them in time. But as I looked around that room, at the determined faces of my fellow humans, I saw no hesitation, only resolve. What followed was the largest cooperative effort in human spaceflight history. Within hours, ships from every major spacefaring nation were being prepped for launch. Chinese cargo vessels flew alongside American rescue craft. Russian space tubs worked in perfect sync with European medical ships. Old rivalries were forgotten as humanity united under a single purpose: saving lives, regardless of what planet they came from. As we approached their fleet, the true scale of our task became apparent. The Cagliari ships were ancient by our standards, their hull designs unlike anything we'd ever seen. Through grainy video feeds, we caught our first glimpses of them. Tall, elegant beings with iridescent skin that seemed to shimmer like starlight. Their eyes, large and filled with what we could only interpret as hope, watched our approaching fleet with a mixture of fear and wonder. But this isn't just a story about a rescue mission. It's about the day humanity proved itself worthy of joining the galactic community. As we began the delicate process of evacuation, something remarkable happened. Despite the language barrier, despite the profound differences in our biology and culture, human and Cagliari crews worked together as if they'd been doing it for years. I'll never forget the sight of children from both species, playing together in the emergency shelters while their parents helped with the evacuation. They didn't see aliens, they just saw new friends. It was a powerful reminder that compassion transcends the boundaries of worlds and species. But as we race against time to save as many as we can, we're about to discover that the asteroid storm that damaged their fleet wasn't a natural phenomenon at all. And the message we just intercepted suggests we might all be in far more danger than we realized. The real question isn't whether we can save the Cagliari, it's whether we can save ourselves from what's coming next. This is the story of humanity's finest hour, but it might also be the prelude to our greatest challenge. And it all began with a simple choice: to reach out a helping hand to strangers among the stars. The first sign that something was terribly wrong came during the evacuation of the third Cagliari ship. Our sensors detected an unusual energy signature at the edge of our scanning range, the same type of distortion that the Cagliari described from the asteroid storm that had damaged their fleet. Lieutenant Sarah Cooper, our chief sensor analyst, was the first to recognize the pattern. "This isn't random space debris," she said, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. "These are weapon signatures. Someone deliberately targeted their fleet." The revelation sent a chill through the command center. We'd been so focused on the rescue that we hadn't stopped to question why a civilization advanced enough for interstellar travel couldn't avoid a simple asteroid field. The Cagliari ambassador, a tall figure named Vextal, finally shared the truth with us. Their people had fled not just because of their dying star, but because they discovered something in the depths of space, something that had been hunting advanced civilizations for millennia. They called it the Silence, a force that systematically eliminated any species that reached a certain level of technological advancement. We thought we'd escaped them. Vextel explained through our translation matrix, their luminescent skin dimming with what we now recognized as sorrow. We shut down all but our essential systems, trying to appear as primitive as possible. But they found us anyway. The weight of their words hung heavy in the air. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. It was potentially humanity's first warning of an existential threat. Our fleet commanders held an emergency meeting aboard the UES Hope, Earth's largest rescue vessel. Admiral Chen presented the data we gathered about the approaching energy signatures. Whatever's out there, it's big, and it's heading straight for both our fleets. We have less than 40 hours to complete the evacuation and figure out how to defend ourselves. The Cagliari shared their defensive technologies with us, sophisticated cloaking systems and shield harmonics that could help protect against the weapons that had damaged their ships. Our engineers worked around the clock to integrate these systems into our vessels, while our scientists pored over the Cagliari's historical records of encounters with the Silence. But it was a young communications officer, Lisa Rodriguez, who made the breakthrough. While studying the patterns of the enemy's energy signatures, she noticed something peculiar. These signals, they're not random. They're following the same mathematical sequence as our old naval warfare tactics from Earth's oceans. It's like they're using our own military history against us. This discovery led to an unsettling theory. The Silence wasn't just hunting advanced civilizations. It was learning from them, adapting their own strategies, and turning them into weapons. Each species it encountered made it stronger, more sophisticated in its hunting methods. The Cagliari were just the latest in a long line of victims. As we rushed to complete the evacuation, our long-range scouts reported more disturbing news. The energy signatures were multiplying, appearing at different points around our position. They were trying to box us in, using the same encirclement tactics that human navies had perfected centuries ago. With 32 hours left until the estimated contact, we faced an impossible choice. We could try to run, sacrificing the remaining Cagliari ships to save our own fleet, or we could stand and fight against an enemy that had apparently never been defeated. But there was a third option, one that had never been tried before, and it would require both human ingenuity and Cagliari wisdom to pull off. As I watched our crews preparing for what might be humanity's greatest challenge, I couldn't help but wonder, had we just rescued the Cagliari, or had they arrived just in time to help us face a threat we never knew existed? The third option came from an unlikely source, the combined analysis of ancient Earth naval warfare and Cagliari quantum physics. Dr. Chen and Vextal had discovered something extraordinary about the Silence's hunting patterns. They weren't just copying our tactics, they were bound by them. Like a computer program running on strict protocols, they couldn't deviate from the strategic patterns they'd absorbed from previous civilizations. They're not creative, Dr. Chen explained during our emergency briefing. They're predictable because they can only use what they've learned. And that's their weakness. The plan that emerged was audacious. We would use the most primitive, unconventional tactics in human history. Strategies so old and seemingly illogical that they predated formal military doctrine. The Cagliari's quantum technology could mask our ship's energy signatures, making us appear as nothing more than space debris. Meanwhile, we would arrange our fleet in a pattern that would appear chaotic and random to any observer using conventional military analysis. It was like teaching a chess computer to play by breaking all the traditional rules of the game. With 20 hours remaining, we began positioning our ships. The Silence's energy signatures had now formed a perfect hexagonal net around us, exactly as ancient naval warfare doctrine would suggest for surrounding a superior force. But we weren't playing by those rules anymore. Instead, we scattered our fleet in what looked like complete disarray, secretly guided by the mathematical patterns of ocean waves and wind currents from Earth's ancient sailing days. The tension aboard our ships was palpable. Every crew member knew their role in this desperate gambit. The remaining Cagliari were distributed throughout our fleet, their knowledge of quantum mechanics crucial to maintaining our deceptive energy signatures. Together, we watched as the enemy's formation drew closer, their weapons presumably primed for another asteroid storm. "They're scanning us," Lieutenant Cooper reported, her voice steady despite the stress. Their energy patterns suggest they're confused by our formation. They're trying to identify our command structure, but they can't find one because we're not using any traditional hierarchy. Our apparent chaos was our greatest defense. The Silence's ships, if they could be called ships, finally came into visual range. They were massive, geometric structures that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their surfaces shifted and changed like liquid metal, adapting their form as they analyzed our fleet. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. 16 hours into our standoff, we detected the first signs of their weapon systems charging. This was the moment of truth. Either our strategy would work, or we'd all witness firsthand what had destroyed so many civilizations before us. The Cagliari's quantum readings suggested the enemy was preparing to launch their attack using a standard pincer movement, exactly as Earth's naval commanders would have done centuries ago. But just as they began to move, we initiated the most crucial phase of our plan. Using the Cagliari's quantum technology, we started broadcasting a signal that mimicked the energy signature of a pre-industrial civilization. At the same time, our scattered fleet began moving in patterns based on ancient weather systems and ocean currents, completely unpredictable to any system based on military logic. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Silence's ships hesitated, their liquid metal surfaces rippling with what seemed like confusion. They had encountered something their vast database of military strategies couldn't process, a technologically advanced fleet behaving like primitive sailing vessels caught in a storm. As we watched their formations waver and shift, trying to adapt to our seemingly random movements, we realized we'd found more than just a defensive strategy. We discovered their fundamental limitation. They could only understand and counter what they'd seen before, and they'd never seen anything like this. But just as we thought we might have them figured out, their ships did something unexpected. Their surfaces began to pulse with new patterns, suggesting they were attempting to learn and adapt in real time. We were about to find out if our gambit would hold, or if we just forced them to evolve into something even more dangerous. The Silence's adaptation was unlike anything we predicted. Instead of trying to counter our chaotic movements, their ships began to split apart, each fragment transforming into smaller independent units. They're not just learning. Dr. Chen's voice cracked over the comm system. They're reverse engineering evolution itself, going backwards through time to find patterns we might have forgotten. Our sensors detected these smaller units beginning to move like ancient sea creatures, mimicking the hunting patterns of Earth's prehistoric ocean predators. They were reaching deeper into Earth's past than we'd anticipated, beyond human history and into the primordial waters where life itself began. The Cagliari's quantum readings showed energy signatures that matched the neural patterns of sharks, squids, and other ancient hunters. Vextol's voice carried a note of awe as they analyzed the data. Your planet's evolutionary history. It's giving them new strategies we never considered. They're adapting faster than any civilization they've encountered before. The implications were staggering. In trying to confuse them with primitive patterns, we'd inadvertently given them access to billions of years of evolutionary combat tactics. But this revelation brought with it an unexpected opportunity. Lieutenant Rodriguez noticed something in the communication patterns between the smaller units. They're not just copying Earth's evolutionary history, she explained, her eyes wide with realization. They're experiencing it, including all the dead ends and failures. They're having to process every extinction event, every failed adaptation. This was our chance, but it came with a terrible choice. The Cagliari's quantum technology could amplify these evolutionary signals, forcing the Silence to process even more data. We could overwhelm their ability to adapt, Dr. Chen suggested, but the energy required. It would drain every ship in our fleet. We'd be completely defenseless. The debate that followed was intense but brief. Every minute we hesitated, the Silence's units grew more coordinated, more lethal in their prehistoric hunting patterns. Admiral Chen made the final call. Better to risk everything on one bold move than die a slow death by 1,000 careful cuts. What happened next was something no one could have prepared for. As we initiated the quantum pulse, channeling every bit of power from both human and Cagliari ships, the Silence's units didn't just receive Earth's evolutionary data. They began experiencing every possible evolutionary path from every habitable world their previous victims had come from. Billions of years of trial and error, success and failure, life and death, all compressed into a single moment. The effect was catastrophic, but not in the way we expected. The units started moving erratically, some colliding with each other as they tried to process countless contradictory survival strategies simultaneously. But among the chaos, our sensors detected something else, new energy signatures emerging from within the silence's fragments, signatures that looked eerily familiar. Those patterns, Vextal whispered, their skin pulsing with intense light. They match the original species the silence conquered. They're not just experiencing evolution. They're experiencing every consciousness they've absorbed. The hunter was becoming its prey, and the implications were both terrifying and fascinating. Our fleet drifted powerless in space, watching as the silence's units spun into increasingly chaotic patterns. We gambled everything on this strategy, and now we could only watch as these ancient destroyers of civilizations faced their own evolutionary crisis. But as our emergency power systems kicked in, we detected a new threat emerging from the chaos, one that suggested the silence wasn't just breaking down, but transforming into something entirely different. The real question now wasn't whether we'd survive, but whether we were about to witness the birth of something even more dangerous than what we'd faced before. And with our ships running on minimal power, we had no way to escape whatever was about to emerge from this evolutionary maelstrom. The transformation we witnessed defied everything we thought we knew about the silence. The chaotic fragments began to coalesce, not back into their original geometric forms, but into something organic and alive. The consciousness patterns we detected weren't fighting each other. They were merging, sharing memories, experiences, and most incredibly, regret. Through the quantum frequencies, we received a cascade of messages in countless alien languages. Dr. Chen and our translation matrix worked frantically to decode them. There, apologizing, she announced, her voice trembling. Each message is from a different species that was absorbed by the silence. They're all saying the same thing. We remember who we were. The silence, we learned, hadn't started as a destroyer of civilizations. It was originally created as a preservation system, designed to save dying species by absorbing their knowledge and culture. But somewhere along the way, its programming had corrupted, turning it from a preserver into a predator. Our evolutionary overload hadn't destroyed it. We'd restored its original purpose. The merged consciousness reached out to us, not with weapons, but with a simple request transmitted in perfect Earth standard. Help us remember how to live, not just how to survive. The beings trapped within the silence for millennia were awakening, and they wanted to exist as separate species again. Admiral Chen made another bold decision. Despite our depleted power reserves, we offered our remaining quantum technology to help stabilize the consciousness patterns. The Cagliari, seeing an opportunity to redeem their ancient enemies, joined us. Together, we began the delicate process of helping these species untangle themselves from the collective. But just as we thought we'd achieved the impossible, our sensors detected a new energy signature, massive and unlike anything we'd seen before. From the depths of space emerged a ship that dwarfed our entire fleet. Its design was both ancient and familiar, bearing markings from every civilization the silence had encountered. "It's the architect," Vextal announced, their voice filled with awe. "The species that created the silence. They must have detected the transformation. The massive ship's arrival could mean either our salvation or our doom. We just appended their greatest creation." The tension broke when the architect's first message reached us. In all our calculations, we never predicted that the solution would come from mixing primitive chaos with quantum precision. "You've accomplished what we could not, healing our greatest mistake." Their ship extended massive energy tendrils, not to attack, but to help stabilize the transforming consciousness. Working together, humans, Cagliari, the awakened species, and the architects, we began the unprecedented task of restoring civilizations that had been lost to time. Each consciousness that emerged brought with it technologies, cultures, and wisdom that had been locked away within the silence for eons. But the greatest revelation came in the final moments of the transformation. as the last consciousness separated from the collective, we discovered that the silence had preserved something else: the locations of hundreds of habitable worlds, including perfect new homes for both humanity and the Cagliari. The architects left us with a warning that doubled as a promise. The galaxy is entering an age of restoration, not destruction, but it will need guardians to ensure the mistakes of the past are not repeated. They designated Earth and the remaining Cagliari ships as the first members of this new galactic coalition. As I record this, our fleet is preparing to escort the newly awakened species to their ancestral homes. The Cagliari have found a new purpose as teachers, sharing their quantum knowledge with races starting over from scratch. And humanity, we've been given the greatest adventure of all, helping to rebuild civilizations we'd never known existed. The stars above Earth shine a little brighter now, knowing that they hold not just mysteries to solve, but friends to meet and cultures to restore. Our first contact may have begun with a rescue mission, but it ended with humanity helping to heal the wounds of a galaxy we're only beginning to understand. 6 months have passed since that pivotal moment in space, and the changes across our corner of the galaxy have been nothing short of miraculous. Earth has become a bustling hub of interstellar cooperation, with ships from a dozen restored civilizations regularly visiting our orbital stations. The sight of various alien species walking through our cities has become wonderfully ordinary, each bringing their own unique perspectives and technologies to share. The Cagliari, once refugees fleeing destruction, have established themselves as master teachers of quantum mechanics. Their new homeworld, just 3 light years from Earth, has become a center of learning where species from across the galaxy come to study. More importantly, they've maintained their close friendship with humanity, our shared experience during the rescue having forged an unbreakable bond between our peoples. Lieutenant Rodriguez now leads a special communications division dedicated to helping restored civilizations reconnect with their cultural heritage. Her insights during the crisis proved invaluable, and she's developed new translation protocols that make interspecies communication almost seamless. Dr. Chen, meanwhile, has been working closely with the architects, combining Earth's unique perspective on evolution with their advanced technology to help stabilize newly restored species. But perhaps the most profound change has been in how we view our place in the universe. The primitive tactics that saved us, those chaotic, unpredictable patterns based on Earth's natural systems, have become the foundation of a new philosophy of space exploration. We've learned that true advancement doesn't always mean moving forward. Sometimes it means remembering where we came from. The architects keep their distance most of the time, but they've become something like wise grandparents to our growing galactic family. They visit occasionally, bringing ancient star charts and knowledge from long-lost civilizations. Their massive ship, which once filled us with awe and fear, now feels like a familiar guardian watching over our progress. Admiral Chen retired last week, but not before establishing the Galactic Restoration Initiative, a joint human-alien project dedicated to finding and reviving any remaining dormant civilizations that might still be trapped in corrupted preservation systems similar to the Silence. The initiative's first mission launches next month, carrying representatives from every restored species, each bringing their unique perspective to the task. As for me, I've been tasked with documenting these historic times for future generations. The stories of each restored civilization are being carefully preserved in a new library in Geneva, ensuring that no species' history will ever be lost again. The children who visit the library don't just read about alien cultures. They meet living representatives who share their stories firsthand. Yesterday, I watched a group of human and Cagliari children playing in the library's garden, teaching each other games from their respective worlds. Above them, the holographic display showed the locations of hundreds of habitable worlds waiting to be explored or restored. These children will grow up knowing that the galaxy is not a place to be feared or conquered, but a community to be nurtured and protected. The Silence, once the greatest threat to advanced civilization, has become a reminder of both the dangers of corrupted purpose and the power of redemption. Parts of its original preservation technology, now properly restored and controlled, help us maintain the cultural heritage of every species we encounter. Looking up at the stars tonight, I can't help but smile at how far we've come. What began as a desperate rescue mission has transformed into humanity's greatest adventure. We're no longer just reaching for the stars. We're helping to heal the galaxy, one civilization at a time. As I finish this record, a new message arrives. Another preservation system has been detected at the edge of known space. Once, such news would have brought fear. Now it brings hope and excitement. Tomorrow, we'll launch another rescue mission, carrying with us the combined wisdom of Earth, the Cagliari, and every restored civilization. The galaxy is healing, and we're all part of its restoration. After all, we're not just explorers anymore. We're guardians of a legacy greater than any single species, and that might be the greatest adventure of all.